It's that time again. Time for yet another My Hero Academia Season 5 review. Last week on My Hero, the 4th match had begun, and it was a good one to say the least. While Bakugo has his typical angry, do-as-I-say kind of attitude, we saw plenty of character development in him as he watched his teammates' backs while also asking them to have him if he needed them. Before his fight with Deku at the end of Season 3, Bakugo selflessly saving someone else, let alone asking someone to save him, was unthinkable. He might still need to take a chill pill, but besides that, he showed everyone a lot of growth and got the overwhelming victory he wanted. And in just about half an episode too. But with the 4th match over, it's now time to move on to the 5th and final match. The one everyone has been waiting for. The fated rematch between Deku and Shinzo. How will it turn out? Well, we're about to find out. Well, not immediately, as the episode starts off with a short of Tartarus prison. The guards are high-strung as an alarm starts going off, wishing that the prisoner responsible would just get charged already. Naturally, this prisoner is none other than All For One. Knowing he's being watched, he apologizes to his watchmen, but explains that the memories he was having made his body ache. Much like Deku, he too could hear the voice of One For All's first user, his little brother. We cut back to the teachers observing the 5th match when a phone call arrives for All Might. He tries to rush off the phone, but the person on the other end ignores him and continues with their gabbing. Of course, it's All Might's teacher, Gran Torino. All Might had asked him if his master had said anything about the One For All vestiges in the past. While his memory isn't what it used to be, Gran Torino did say that he remembered one thing she said after she inherited One For All. She said she had a weird dream. In this dream, a dark fuzzy shadow that looked like a man stood in front of her and said, "The time has not come yet." And that was it. Definitely a bit of an ominous vibe coming from that conversation, as All Might points out that something will happen to a One For All successor someday. We finally get a cut back to Deku on the move during Class A and Class B's final match. Because of Class B having Shinzo on their side, he's aware that once their teams run into each other, that their communication will be shut down, so he's moving out on his own, becoming the bait for Class B to catch. Speaking of Class B, we now get to see their perspective. As the match starts, Monoma tells Shinzo about how many people told him growing up that he couldn't become a hero with the quirk that he had. From his point of view, people like the two of them that want to become heroes need to embrace both good and bad to survive. Shinzo isn't the biggest fan of Monoma drawing those comparisons, but he really isn't far off, as what he's saying does hold water. He asks how he was able to brainwash Deku at the sports festival, to which he replies that he simply insulted his classmates, as he didn't really know what would set him off, showing that he did in fact have to embrace the bad in that instance. He talks about how as heroes, they always have to act exactly as such, otherwise they won't be able to win against those with much stronger powers. Monoma sees the flaws in that kind of thinking, as it makes him feel like the hopes and dreams he had as a kid feel more like a burden and a curse. We move on to a scene of the other students observing the match, with it being pointed out that Deku's team is basically just emulating Bakugo's. In fairness to Deku, aside from not having a scout, his team is structured a lot like Bakugo's, so it only makes sense to take inspiration from the team that had the most overwhelming victory. But in doing this, Deku is going to need to work a lot harder than Bakugo did. The plan is simple. Do something flashy, get their attacks focused on him, find out their locations, and capture them. This plan does seemingly work as he's attacked by a flying barrel. A scream is heard right after Deku parries the barrel, and then immediately notices Monoma. In Monoma fashion, he starts monologuing about how naturally they'd all be wary of Deku, as he's very similar to Bakugo in terms of strength and speed. But on that same token, he points out how Bakugo is strong because of the other three, and how they should be taken out first. In an attempt to get his goat, Monoma says that his teammates have already found the other 3 Class A students and need his help. Deku is being really careful here, as he doesn't know if Monoma has copied Shinzo's brainwashing, and this goes in for the attack. Monoma might be annoying as hell, but he's not wrong in saying that some people need to play a little dirty. These kinds of mind games really would put anyone up against the likes of him or Shinzo in a really tough spot. We cut over to the rest of Class A, who are actually fine, as they lay down a trap for their opponents. Just as something gets trapped, they're faced with a barrage of small objects thanks to Yanagi's quirk, Poltergeist. Her quirk allows her to control anything near her, but she can only move an amount that's roughly the weight of an average person. Next, we see Kodai's quirk, Size. It allows her to change the size of anything she touches with the exception of living things. Her and Yanagi using their quirks in tandem is pretty smart. as flying the objects at their opponents really fast and then spontaneously changing their size is a great way to throw someone off, if not hurting them pretty badly. Uraraka stops the barrage using her zero gravity, but this is countered right away by Shota's twin impact quirk. His quirk allows him to create a second impact whenever he'd like, wherever he's created a place that he's already hit once before, with the second impact having much greater power than the first impact. And with that does it for knowing all of Class B's unique quirks. With Class B knowing the approximate location of Class A, they seem to be in a real bind. But before anything happens there, let's cut back to Deku. As Deku continues his assault on Monoma, the Class B psychopath begins talking about a conversation he had with Shinzo. He says that those who have been blessed destroy the world. So he asks Deku how his friend Bakugo can smile without any concern. Then to really egg him on, he mentions his capture by the League of Villains, which resulted in the end of the Symbol of Peace. Well, this really pisses Deku off, as One For All surges through his body and something explodes from his hand. All Might reflects on the words his master said, "The time has not yet come." Well, it certainly seems like it's come, as his hand comforts and makes him writhe in pain. He shouts out to both Monoma and a well-hidden Shinzo to run, as he is not able to hold back whatever is coming out of him. As everyone looks in pure astonishment over what's going on, the power continues to explode out of Midoriya, and it ends up sending him flying, crashing into buildings. Deku remembers everything he's been through with One For All, and how he's finally on the right track to make it his own power, just for it to go ahead and throw a wrench in his progress. As he desperately tries to get it under control, Uraraka comes through to try and help. During a flashback of hers, she reminisces back to when she was younger and feeling pain from seeing her parents being exhausted all the time. However, she also remembers the smile on their faces while watching a hero do their job. Seeing them all happy made her happy as well, so it was only natural to her to help those that were in trouble. But watching Deku made her realize that something natural like wanting to help those in need could also be very difficult. This made her wonder about who was there for heroes when they were in need of help. As Deku's power continues going berserk, Uraraka notices a bystanding Shinzo, calling out to him to use a brainwash on Deku. Completely stunned by the event happening right in front of him, he couldn't even think of what to say. After losing to him, he wanted to show him how much stronger he grew, and was excited at the chance to fight him again. With that being on his mind, he asks Deku to fight him. Deku manages to respond, successfully putting him under brainwashing spell, and calming down the black tendrils coming from his arm. As he goes unconscious, Deku is once again in that shadowy world where he met the first user of One For All. A big bald man steps out from the smoke within this realm and starts yelling at Deku. He reminds him that the first said he wasn't alone. He tells him he needs to work harder, and that eventually everything will work out for him. Deku's shocked by how clearly he can see one of the past One For All users, realizing this isn't simply a vestige. This is a full-blown living spirit. As he begins to fade away, the predecessor begins to give Deku a rundown. The power that exploded out of his arm was actually the predecessor's quirk, Black Whip. Apparently, as time went on, One For All grew with all the previous users' quirks, mixing into the core of One For All. Before, the core was tiny, but was now growing larger and beginning to move. The reason behind Black Whip manifesting was from Deku's strong desire to capture Monoma, which just so happens to be what Black Whip is most useful for. He mentions that he's lucky that he got such a top-notch quirk as his first to manifest from One For All, but that also he has to be careful as the stored quirks also have all the additional cultivated power from One For All added to them as well, making it much stronger than when he originally used it. As he fades away, he tells Deku that using his powers in anger isn't a bad thing, but he needs to focus on controlling his heart if he wants to use the anger to his advantage, as it is a source of power itself. As he fades, his final words to Deku are that he will have 6 quirks manifest over time, and to work on controlling his heart so that he can master all of them, as he is going to be the one to complete One For All. Deku is then woken up by a nice slap to the face by Uraraka. Now that he's under control, Monoma doesn't give the two a moment's rest and immediately goes for an attack. The confusion that Black Whipped caused turned the well-calculated battle that both teams were going for into a full-out brawl. With all of the teachers now in the field themselves watching the battle, All Might asks Eraserhead what they should do. Eraser wants to take the wait-and-see approach this time around, as we get one final shot of Deku and Shinzo staring each other down. And with that, the episode comes to a close. Honestly, I'm stunned. So much happened in such a short amount of time. This is definitely one turn I did not see coming. Obviously, something wacky was going on with Deku in One For All, but having 6 more quirks inside of him? That's just insane. Although, I suppose in hindsight, it makes sense. After all, the first user's original quirk was the ability to pass down quirks, so it does seem that wasn't limited to just his own. But it does make me wonder, why was Deku seemingly the only one to manifest the quirks and not the other users? Also, what will the other 5 quirks be? I'm sure we'll learn about all of that in due time, but this has just got me unbelievably excited for what's to come from this series. This has definitely got to be one of the best episodes in this series, purely from what this revelation means for the future of our main character. But that's going to do it for me for now. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment down below what your thoughts are on this. I'm sure you manga readers have been waiting patiently for a while to see this reveal to be animated, and are just loving the reactions from anime onlys. With that said, I'm a Sage, and I'll see you all next time with some more awesome anime content.